Oscar?
Are you still here, Kate Walker?
Well, what do you think since the devs decided to just cut the story into 2 pieces? So of course we are still here, and fully loaded with lots of sarcasm. The first game got a pass, it's just too lovely. But now, my sarcasm and me are back. Are you ready? Welcome to the channel. And to already mention it here, if you think that Lara is a badass female character, well, just wait for what Kate Walker pulls off. Alright, but before we dig in, so Syberia directly picks up where the first part left us, to conclude Kate's first adventure. And if you didn't play the first game, well, I recommend you just stop here and do that first. Or follow this link and watch the video to brush up on what happened so far. Okay, so Syberia 2 came out in 2004 and has since then been ported to many different platforms. And with that, let's dive right into the story, to check out if Kate truly finds the legendary island of Syberia. And no worries, there will be a huge warning once we enter spoiler territory.
Have you heard anything about Kate Walker?
Well, obviously not. The game starts with a big kahuna all of a sudden being worried about his MVP, female lawyer Kate McBeal. And this is so weird since he absolutely didn't give a shit in the first game and just pushed her around like a dumpster on trash day. And now all of a sudden he feels that she might give him her notice and he starts to care. The more I think about it, the more I feel that this could be a scene from the office I work at.
Kate? Come on now, Pat, answer me.
Okay, I guess he didn't change after all.
Your place is here in New York. Your job is here. Your friends are here. Your life.
But why? What life? She has a shitty boss, her best friend got some benefits from her fiancé, and the most they talked about was like bloody Ross, dress for less. Well, she's past all that crap and she just hangs up. Good for her. It is clear that she's no longer that superficial, naive, self-centered brat from Sex and the City. She developed past that. Way past that, as this game will show. Anyway, her mission, if she chooses to accept it, is clear.
We're going to Syberia.
And so the sequel starts. And if you don't want any story spoilers, go to here. Okay, I'm glad you're still here. So our genius grandpa Hans must have invented some sort of flux capacitor or so, since he miraculously managed to set up a complete workshop in his cabin. And all that while on the short ride between Aralbat and Romansburg. But then again, this might have been here all along, since the first game never showed us this camera angle.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the frontier town of Romansburg, gateway to the tundra.
The happy couple arrives at Romansburg, the last town before, well, before nothing actually. And here the devs thought it would be a great idea to implement some social criticism into the game. And hey, they were well ahead of their time and wrote it in a way that also Roblox players can actually understand.
Low down is low down and high up is high up. People who are low down got different points of view from those who are high up. Different kettle, different fish.
That's why there's a gate separating the upper from the lower town. But our dear lawyer doesn't really give a shit about the local social structures. She opens the gate and goes on a stroll through downtown. Get it? Well, it seems like our dear Colonel Emiliev-Gubachev wasn't totally wrong, and even kids know that.
The Burgov brothers are liars and thieves. And they're nasty and they smell.
So Kate needs to fill her train with coal. A spring-loaded train. Well, for the heating, that is. And it so happens that the coal conveyor runs on petrol.
Out of luck. The can's empty. I'm gonna see if I can find somewhere to fill it.
And guess who are the only people in town that have some fuel? Exactly, the Burgovs. Kate remembers her manners and asks first, but that doesn't sit very well.
Seeing as you don't seem to want to help me.
You might have a point there, my flower. Goodbye now.
Well, as the qualified ace attorney that she is,
Objection!
Kate carefully evaluates all the facts of this tricky situation and comes to the conclusion that stealing from someone that little girls call liars and thieves can't be bad at all. So she bends the law by just a tad, quickly breaks into their property, creates a masterful distraction by releasing one of those Yukis out of captivity, nicks a gas canister, and before anyone notices, leaves undetected by the non-existent local authorities and fills up the engine. After maxing out the coal bunker of the train, we are ready to go. Or are we?
Kate Walker! Kate Walker! Something terrible has happened!
Ah, shit. Well, that would have been too easy, and honestly, to leave now and not have given Kate the chance to visit the local monastery of Romansburg, well, would have been a pity to miss that sight. I mean, once here, right? So, to make every tourist dream come true, the devs sent Hans to the local pub to hang out and inspect some automatons. But that workout and whatever substance that he might have consumed give him the rest and he blacks out. Are there doctors in town? Yeah, no.
People around here say the patriarch of the monastery has healing powers. They also say he's a dingaling, a bit of a fanatic, if you know what I mean.
Great. And of course, with a man of Hans' age, there is really not much time to lose.
Yes, do hurry up, Kate Walker.
Thanks for stating the obvious, Oscar XZ 2000. So Kate immediately heads over to the edge of town to climb up to the monastery, only to find out that...
It's really a bit too cold.
No shit! I mean, Kate is neither a Tomb Raider that defies the laws of thermodynamics, nor is she one of those creeps that hang out at the local Walmart's parking lot in the middle of the night at like sub-zero temperatures, in shorts and t-shirt. And believe me, that's a thing. Anyway, if you now think that you can witness a scene of our hot chick changing, well, think again.
Toasty. And not unelegant even.
And these are the clothes Katie will be wearing for the rest of her journey. Or will she? Anyway, onwards to the monastery.
I rang the bell, but the monk at the door doesn't seem to want to show me in.
Well, no problem for Kleptokate. She simply relieves one of the monks from his washing duties by taking away the root of his burden. In other words, our ex-lawyer steals. From a monk. A total badass. And with my disappointment of hiding in the nearby bushes to change, she continues her way. This time she goes full undercover. Almost like she chose to accept that stupid IMF choice. And with that, Kate enters the monastery and goes straight to the master of this shady organization. Apparently, he's some sort of retired Jedi master or so and has the Force Seal power. So Kate thinks it's the best to go all Leia.
You're our only hope.
You're my only hope.
And I guess Kate is also not absolutely unskilled in the ways of the Force, and her minute-long yapping is some kind of Jedi mind trick. With that, the Patriarch has been convinced and they go out of their way to bring Hans in. Quite literally, I might add, since the monastery has this prison vibe going on and the monks prefer to let people die rather than trying to cure them.
I will wait for you in the chapel when everything is over. For the formalities, you understand.
So it is up to Kate and her invisible mastermind holding the controller to save the day, but not so fast. There's always time for some local offenses, just one or two really. Kate doesn't seem to be in a hurry. And in short succession she desecrates a grave, vandalizes some old paintings, randomly plays with fire and keeps herself busy with some cool looking projections before she realizes that she somehow needs to save her old lad from dying. So to brush up on her first aid training, she quickly cooks up some meds and incinerates these to create some hallucination-inducing smoke shit that miraculously heals Hans. And with Hans now having a full health bar again, it's time to plan the escape from the monastery. But in order to increase their success rate, a distraction is needed. So Kate adds some more burglary to her rep sheet by pinching a key that she uses to gain unauthorized access to and use of the sacred bell. And that without even selling a single timeshare. Unbelievable. Okay, the coast is clear. And hold on tight because they do escape by sledding down the mountain. And how fitting for an 83-year-old in a bloody coffin. I mean, really? If this would have been a reality TV show or so, Kate could have just left Hans' dead body in the coffin and continued his bloody journey alone without him. But since this is a game, he's in a peculiar situation of having to survive anything the devs throw at him.
That was some ride, huh, Hans?
Yes, it was real fun, Kate Walker. Really.
So they are ready to leave, and what does our dear protagonist do? Well, Kate decides to do some puzzle solving and to have a last stroll around Romansburg. And while doing so, someone steals the train. And by someone I mean the Burkhoff brothers.
This is a daylight robbery.
Yeah, look who's talking. I mean, at this point in the game, I don't think that Kate is a morally adequate person to point this out any longer. Anyway, she needs to follow them. But how? Well, luckily the devs really thought of absolutely everything and installed this cool-looking mechanical vehicle below the tracks. But Kate doesn't get very far. She needs something to actually power that thing. And what better occasion than to consider some good old animal abuse? So, some quick thinking on Kate's side.
Hey, Yuki, come back here.
She uses some fisherman's friends or so to lure the Yuki into the cage, and off they go. I always found it truly remarkable that they actually can catch up to a train. A highly sophisticated train. A train designed by the one and only mastermind of this world, Hans Vorarlberg. And even if they could catch up at such speeds, Kate should have ended up as a popsicle no matter what she's wearing. But then again, her New York Walmart training must have prepared her somehow for this enduring task. The train kind of half derails, destroying a bridge and adding the destruction of her cultural heritage to her report card.
Ha ha, Kate Walker. The ivory's ours.
Okay, so these two morons are only after the ivory and cause so much trouble? Okay, I can see that. And with that, it's time for Kate to enjoy a stroll through Syberia, with an eye. Anyway, Kate runs around a bit, crosses a river, finds a mansion, gets yelled at by Cocaine Bear himself. And well, to get her survival stress meter down a bit, and since time is not of the essence in a point-and-click adventure, she decides to take it down a notch and do some fishing. Yeah. I mean, why not, right? After having chilled, she goes all indie and crosses a cliff gap. In style. But she's too late. The Burkhoffs continue with their kidnapping of Hans since they have absolutely no clue as to where to find the ivory.
God, Hans was on the back of that sled.
Remember the chronically drunk Russian cosmonaut Boris Charov from the first game?
Boris, can you receive me?
The one that Kate just launched into space without even considering if he's physically or mentally capable to walk a straight line. Well, he wasn't, and now he crashes his way back into her life. His so-called flying wing is a complete wreck after this smooth landing of his. A complete wreck? Well, luckily not. Since Kate has to catch up with our stupid brothers as soon as possible, to rescue Hans it is, she decides to power the jump seat. And man, she's a genius. With a player's help, that is, since she lands right next to the locomotive where she rescues her sidekick, Oscar. Finally, reunited. But Oscar doesn't feel too well and acts like someone has just shoved a stick up his ass, I mean like deeper than usual. But hey, nothing that some sips of good old oil couldn't handle. And there goes the bio-non-degradable full synthetic OW20. What a nice fellow. He makes sure to give back to Mother Nature. Adorable. Well, let's add environmental contamination to Kate's list, shall we? So, after Oscar's stamina meter has been restored, Kate and her accidental sidekick are on the road again. Next stop, the Yukol village. Okay, I know what you're going to say. But talk, you missed a whole section where Kate walks around in front of boring white backgrounds only to accomplish breaking the ice beneath her feet and falling into unconsciousness. Then waking up in the Yukol village and having to solve puzzles to actually pull the train into the station. Exactly. Thanks for reminding me. And with that out of the way, it's time to search for Hans. Fortunately, Kate doesn't have to search for too long. After intentionally sabotaging the Yukol's water supply and damaging their boombox, she finds Spider Hans hanging from the ceiling and chilling. Anyway, so this is not Syberia with a Y yet. But she must be very close since there are giant skeletons everywhere and mammoths frozen in ice decorate the backdrops of this section. And since Katie has nothing better to do, she cooks up some more drugs and starts chilling alongside Hans. In her self-induced delirium, she believes to enter Hans' childhood dream. Sure. Anyway, once back to the Valady land of the past, she finds Hans in the attic and tries to convince him to come back to reality.
Hans, talk to me.
But Hans doesn't look too well. I mean, hell, let's be honest here. He looks like straight out of a Japanese horror movie, no kidding.
You must open his heart for me.
Ugh, creepy brat. But that's exactly the signal Kate needed to wake up from her sedation. So, next up on her crime sheet, murder. She has to get rid of our beloved chatterbox Oscar. Apparently he needs to serve one last time.
I am only an automaton, and it is time I served some purpose.
So Oscar opens up, quite literally, and provides an exoskeleton for Hans. Wow, now that was unexpected. I mean, from a near-death experience to Spider-Hans to Robocop in like an hour. This man has it all. Marvel should consider him instead of those second-tier newbies that no one wants to see. Okay, now that Hans is fully restored, well, at least as long as he's wound up, I guess. Anyway, with his vitality restored, it's time to continue their journey. And since Syberia is an island, well, they need a ship. And fortunately, the devs have placed a frozen one right here, right inside of this very cave. But it's covered in ice. So, since Oscar is no longer around, Kate operates a train to produce some steam and unfreeze the ship. In a cave, where the whole structure consists of ice. I mean, think about it. She's absolutely ruthless and is willing to accept that the whole cave might collapse, thus committing genocide and wiping out the last of the Yukols.
Go. You leave now.
Anyway, the ship is back to its former glory and the journey can continue. And next, Kate shows her true nature and the mental age of an 8-year-old on the back seat during a tedious road trip through Death Valley without an air condition.
Are we there, Hans? Is this it?
No.
Are we there yet? Anyway, the anchor got stuck. Kate doesn't hesitate, leaves the ship and releases it.
There we go. We can leave now.
Well, no, because that Brad Berghoff is back, duh. Since Kate is locked out now, she pulls off a stunt and drifts on an ice floe to get back on the ship. Once there, she disables the enemy by throwing him overboard and lets the penguins handle the rest. Like eating him alive. Okay, that would add grievous bodily harm, denial of assistance, and murder to her records. Well done, Kate. Well done. And by this point, I'm not sure whether she can ever return back to civilization without facing some serious trials and ending up behind bars, like forever. But hey, how does that slogan go? Whatever happens in Syberia, stays in Syberia, right? Anyway, the journey continues and they arrive at their final destination, Syberia, with a Y. Finally. And after enjoying one of her strolls to calm down a bit and relax from her stressful gangster life, she once more abuses the sweet and adorable Yuki and forces him to open the gate. And behind the gate, the fields of blue grass. So, Kate shows off her musical talent and calls the mammoths. And finally, after this 2-game lasting trip, the mammoths arrive and Kate accomplishes her promise to help Hans achieve his lifetime dream. Hans meets the mammoths and rides off into the sunset. The end. And a very satisfying one, I might add. What I didn't mention, since not that relevant to this story, is that Kate's head honcho hired a private gun, Nick Canton, to follow her every footstep and try to find her. Well, needless to say that he never does. At least not until this point in the story. Anyway, with the conclusion of Kate's first journey, let's look at Syberia's world next. And again, there are several locations to explore, but while in the first game they all felt similarly long, here the first stop is the absolutely dominant one.
Welcome to Romansburg, the last town before the vast wild glacial wastes of the tundra.
And what can already be seen here is that the devs really improved the feeling of this world. It is a much busier world, not so frozen in time as in the first game, where all locations were almost completely empty. Here, there is a fair number of NPCs, well, at least what you would expect from a shithole at the end of the world. Some chop wood, others walk around minding their own business. Again, others just spend their days drunk at the local pub, drowning their hopes in some good old vodka. And in the end, the world is much more believable like this. Romansburg has also a monastery with creepy old monks in black robes. It's all good, but not really what I expected from a world full of automatons. But then again, we are at
The last town before the vast plains of the frozen waste.
The next location is Syberia, with an I. And yeah, not much going on here. It's beautifully white with some wildlife here and there and a nice cabin. A picturesque setting with an abandoned tiny military or research base or so. The location is actually very short, well, unless you get hung up on that one abysmal puzzle that the devs designed. But more on that in the game mechanics section. After Romansburg, the Yukol village is the second largest location in the game. Remember that 5 to 6 minute long lecture from Professor Cornelius Pons back in Barockstadt? Well, this is it. This is the tribe he was talking about. Again, an interesting location with some puzzles, and the build-up from the first game makes this somewhat special. But again, it doesn't give the same sense of wonder as other locations did. I don't want to give away too much, but while in the village, Kate dreams about the past and she visits Valadilan. Since this is a dream, the picturesque village is even more deserted than it was in the first game. And then there are two more very short locations towards the end of the game. From a design perspective, and since the game built up to these, they are very cool, and at least one of them is drawn using a completely different color palette. Very atmospheric and very vibrant. And if you don't mind spoilers, just watch the story section of this video. And while talking about the world, Microids tried to build up a coherent world by linking stuff from the previous game to this one. Like a newspaper article that Kate finds, which talks about Helena Romansky, a character that played an important role in the first game. As you can see, I don't have that much to say about the world of Syberia 2. It's not as fantastic and captivating as the one in the previous game. It's more down to earth, still nice, but a little bit darker. And the same could be said about the characters. Of course, our main character is, once again, Kate Walker. So, Kate underwent quite a development in the first game, like from a spoiled city girl to an independent, self-aware woman. But she sometimes still acts like a bloody, annoying brat.
Are we there, Hans? Is this it?
Bloody hell! Just look around you. No, you are not there. You are absolutely nowhere. Stop bothering and get on with your task so you can actually reach somewhere before Hans bites the dust. And this is not the only time she acts like a bloody 8-year-old.
Is it still far?
Pretty much.
On the one hand, Kate is like super determined.
I promise, Hans Vorarlberg. We're going to Syberia.
But then, on the other hand, she starts to question herself non-stop.
Nobody's ever seen this island. No explorers ever talked about it. And well, it's not on any map, Hans.
Kate still seems to be torn between her previous life in New York and this one, where she basically leaves everything and everyone she knew behind. And I mean, who wouldn't be? Well, but it's for Kate to decide whether she wants to bite on the big apple or throw it away once and for all. And not only this journey and the locations were split in half by releasing the story in 2 games, no. Also, Kate's transformation was split. While she was still the kinda nice and obedient lawyer in the first game, where her character transformed from being a New York City brat to a conscious being, well, in the second game, her transformation reaches the next level. If you now, for example, think that Lara is badass, jumping down, dual-wielding her guns and slaughtering wolves, well, you haven't seen our dear Kate Raider yet. She isn't superficial at all and started to make decisions for herself on what is right and what is wrong. Not just abiding the law, well, as a lawyer, no. She now works full of enthusiasm on establishing a reputable criminal record and hoping for Thomas Angelos to read her resume and offer her a job or something. Here just a short extract. Multiple instances of trespassing on private property, several cases of theft, animal abuse, grave desecration, destruction of cultural heritage, environmental contamination, grievous bodily harm, and denial of assistance resulting in death. Okay, I might have exaggerated just a bit. She is still a nice person and all, but what I meant to say is that it is very obvious in this game that she changed. The only one who is doubting that is herself. And in terms of character development, the second part of the journey is merely there for her to acknowledge her own change. Since everyone around her seems to know that she has changed for good. I mean, even people that she just met.
Ah, people like you, Miss Walker, end up never going home.
As said, Kate is the only one that needs to acknowledge that. But enough about Kate. There are also other characters in the game.
Mr. Vorarlberg? Hans Vorarlberg?
A lovely old genius and the more obvious reason for this trip, to help him with his ultimate dream to reach the legendary island of Syberia. While he is a genius, he's also very old and weak. So Kate needs to constantly help him out to make sure that he has a chance to reach the end of this journey. More characters? So, in the first game, Kate used to get a lot of calls from nosy relics of her past, like friends, family, and her boss. She now gets calls from...
Oscar, you're using a telephone?
Oscar? So, Hans was not only busy setting up his little workshop in the train, no. He invented a mechanical version of a cell phone and implanted it into Oscar's head. And he did all that while on the train ride between Arlbut and Romansburg. While Kate was daydreaming about her past. Hans is a true genius. And since we are already talking about Oscar, he is still our overly German, very direct and innocent childlike automaton that we learned to love in the first game.
Trains should never have to stop. I simply don't like stations, Kate Walker, nor the towns around them.
And of course there are again funny characters all over the game. Like this Colonel Emiliev Gupachev in Romansburg.
Sorry, I'm very busy, madam.
He's kind of totally useless and suffers from a pressing case of schizophrenia.
Not much left to get on with.
I mean, in the same bloody scene. And then there are these constantly bothering intermissions from Kate's useless lawyer friends.
We've got to go look for her. Find someone. I don't know who. Someone spunky.
Yes, sir. We've got Nick Canton, a detective.
I'm really not sure if they understood their job as lawyers, because stalking is considered to be a pretty serious offense nowadays. So they hire Nick Canton to stalk her. And this is his first introduction to the series. He will be of some relevance later on. Okay, so in summary, the story is a direct continuation of the first game and represents a conclusion to Kate Walker's first journey. While the world is livelier, it is at the same time more boring and less charming than what we had in the first game. And the characters? Well, lovely as ever. And again, the story is here to experience and underline Kate's development/transformation.
I'm not coming home, Mom.
And with that, story, world and characters get an 8.1 out of 10. Ooh, I forgot. There are also some goons here, but that's just a superficial focus and better to be experienced by yourself. And...
Hey, Yuki, come back here.
This adorable Yuki. A mix of seal and dog that follows Kate around, her second sidekick besides Oscar. The poor soul has some problems with the pathfinding, but the devs are really nice buddies and help him out by simply warping him to the next scene on every single screen transition. So, no gameplay problems here. Well, which actually brings us to gameplay. And mechanics are first. So, let's start with the settings. And for the Switch version, the settings are basically the same as in the last game. And there are still no save slots or manual save options on the system. Well, I mean, it's the same interface, so that's not unexpected. But let's get to the main mechanics. There are definitely more puzzles here than in the first game, which is very welcome. These are mostly self-explanatory and easy to solve, like this one from the very beginning of the game. Get the key from a broken candy machine, use it to get a coin, use the coin to get candy, use the key to get the coin back, and repeat. Then use the candy to deal with that little brat and get another key to open the gate, for Kate to go on a stroll through the next section of the game. More puzzle means that this is more of a game compared to a walking simulator and a visual novel. Don't get me wrong, I loved the first game, but in direct comparison and playing these back to back, well, such improvements are absolutely noticeable. For Syberia 1, the devs seem to have focused on somehow putting a game together. And for this sequel, they seem to have had more time to refine and expand on the game mechanics. Talking about puzzles, there are also classic puzzles where you have to use items you found with some sort of device, or some logic puzzles to get a mechanism to work, all in the name of game progress. And while we are already on this topic, same as in Syberia 1, the devs could simply not live without giving us one really annoying puzzle. This time around, Kate decides to go fishing, and she needs to catch one specific fish, of course. Variables, different lures and different fishing spots. But you can pretty much narrow it down to 2 lures, and the fishing spot is also actually easy to figure out. From a document that you find, well, at least after some tries when you actually read it carefully till the end. Until then, it takes her forever to fish, like in bloody real life. And then you already know that it is the wrong fish, but you still have to go through the whole house, deliver it, and go back to try again. It takes over 2 minutes every single time. And yeah, I know what you want to say. But Todd, you can give the wrong fish to the Yuki who's right next to you. Right, and I did, in the PC version. On Switch, I ran around the Yuki like an idiot and the hotspot to interact with him just didn't appear. That was so frustrating. But hey, this is kind of the only frustrating puzzle in the game, and not because it is not logical, no, simply because every try takes like forever. Okay, so besides the puzzles and the walking, Kate is basically talking her way through this adventure, and this time the dialogue topics disappear after having gone through these. Not sure how I feel about this though. It's good so you only see the open topics and keep focused, but there's no way of re-experiencing old conversations. I mean, in case you missed something or accidentally skipped forward. I wish they would have just gone with graying out the dialogue topics so that you can still revisit these. And talking about dialogues, these can be quite lengthy. And besides these, another source of information is the documents you come across. These are also quite long reads, but hey, this is a point-and-click adventure after all. Also, the help system makes a return, very useful to remind you of the tasks that are still open. And one of the main mechanics of the game is still walking, like back and forth. But hey, Kate Walker's the name, so what do you expect? And this walker simulator might be frustrating to some and enjoyable to others. Here an especially annoying part from the first section of the game. So you need this monk to disappear and you find out that he likes some kind of special bird that is difficult to spot, but can be attracted by very specific chirping sounds. Now, the game makes you walk all the way back to the exact opposite side of the map to get some whistles from this merchant.
A bird call. Why, I sell them by the truckload during the hunting season. I've got a whole collection of them.
Then run all the way back to the monk, again across the entire map, to give him a specific one out of your collection so he can go chasing for his favorite bird. So if such situations frustrate you, well then maybe skip this one and just watch the story spoiler section of this video. If you're okay with Kate walking, yeah, funny I know. Well, at least you have a run button to sweeten the deal. Or do you? Well, there's this really annoying section that follows the distraction of the monk, where Kate enters the monastery, and guess what? Yeah, the run button has been deactivated. Kate Walker. But since there's so much walking involved, let's check out how this actually controls, shall we? Well, same as in the first game, point and click for PC and analog sticks for consoles, which works for the most part. But there are some situations that are kind of flimsy and look accidentally funny since screen transitions are not where I would expect these to be. But then again, this is only an issue when playing with a gamepad and directly controlling Kate. And talking about screen transitions, some of these are again straight out of hell. Like they didn't learn anything from the previous game. These scenes immediately kick you back to the previous screen. So yeah, no improvement here. An area where they did improve though, well, that's up for debate actually. Anyway, an area of, let's call it, change. Doors. Visually great and a big step up from Syberia 1 since there are many more animations. But same as with the Resident Evil HD remaster on consoles. Why is it so bloody difficult to program a button to skip the animations? Instead, you have to watch these over and over and over again. At least these are not as long as what Jill has to go through every single time she decides to walk into another room. But still, guys, is it really that difficult to include the option to skip an animation? Okay, that's all for this section. In summary, Syberia 2 is more of a game than the first one. Yeah, it did annoy me at times and it has its walking simulator sequences. But its slow pace is something that can actually be enjoyed. And it controls, well, good. And since overall its gameplay has more to offer than the first installment, it deserves an 8.2 out of 10. And with this out of the way, let's have a look if there were any improvements in terms of presentation. And visuals are first. I'm happy to report that there were indeed many slight improvements to the visuals. Overall, these look great. Train, for example, it looks much more detailed than in the first game. And talking about details, for everyone who wants to know whether the devs completely modeled our sexy lawyer to the bone or whether it's all just texture work.
It's a little chilly to be taking a shower. Thanks all the same.
Well, gotta disappoint you here. Other improvements, for example, are the aspect ratio. Is it widescreen or is it 4:3? The answer is yes. Well, kinda on halfway between 4:3 and widescreen. So there are scrolling screens now, and this time they were not left out in the Switch version. These screens are widescreen and end up in half widescreen towards the end of the scrolling process. A pretty weird design choice not to draw the rest, maybe due to hardware limitations for the animations. Anyway, what is here is a weird step towards widescreen. Like walking but with crutches. Possible, but doesn't feel quite right. In my last review, I complained about the characters feeling out of place since they did not interact with the environment, well, apart from half-baked shadows. In this game, much better shadows, water reflections, and even water splashing. It was actually a good decision to split the story into 2 games, giving the devs the extra time to work on such. These effects integrate the characters much better into the game. Next point, added visual effects, like here some particle effects of snowflakes or smoke, or in some instances even snow falling down from the roof. These effects add to the atmosphere and don't make the game look as sterile as the first one, or my neighbor's dog for that matter. And there are animations everywhere, many more than in the first part. Like the fan inside of the train, for example, or small details like reflections on Oscar's glasses. Overall, a lot of small improvements. Although, and this point brings us to the negatives, the characters still do look out of place, like parasites, at least the 3D ones. The light is just not right and they kind of stick out. And it also doesn't help that they let some intern or so who had absolutely no clue on how to use the magic wand do some of the cutouts for the objects. Yeah, really poor. It also doesn't help that, again, that there is no lip syncing on the Switch. But hey, at least they move their heads to give the impression of, I don't know, talking? But let's leave this section on a positive note. There are also, well, FMV characters like this guy chopping wood, and in comparison, these ones blend in perfectly. Now, regarding the performance of the game, smooth. And I barely encountered any bugs on my playthrough. The game didn't even crash once on me, but I encountered this one bug. The dialogue sequence simply wouldn't trigger and I got stuck on this screen. I was able to move around, but that's about it. Luckily, restarting the game fixed the issue and I didn't really lose any progress. So the visuals are a nice step up from the first game, but what about the sound? Well, it stayed at the same level and is fitting, but the fact that Kate seems to be constantly wearing brand new sneakers when walking around can get a little bit annoying. And the voice actors, not AAA, but hey, all dialogues are voiced, and the voice actors put their emotions and creepiness into the characters.
The law is the law is the law.
Or...
Thank you for calling Candy Rock. Our offices are closed for the winter season, but we'll be delighted to deal with your order at the thaw.
And of course, Oscar's voice is as lovely as ever, like a little child. Simply put, adorable.
There. Hello, little Yukols. No need for alarm.
Especially this scene reminds me of episode 6, where C-3PO tells a story to the Ewoks. Well, here it is XZ2000, and instead of the Ewoks, he is talking to the Yukols. Environmental sound effects, yep. All here, like wind howling, birds chirping, and so on. Hey, Kate even tries to do her own stunts like Dear Lara, but she soon realizes that that ain't gonna happen. So she prefers to listen to the drum sounds instead. And of course there are some strange sound effects here. I mean, once Kate gets in her rope, she suddenly starts to walk with a limp. Like, why all of a sudden? I don't get it. Is that a thing with monks in France, or where did the devs get that from? Music. Together with the title screen, it really sets the tone for this wintry feeling and an ongoing trip. I immediately thought about the music from the train rides of the first game. But while having a similar vibe, it is different. And again, the music fits nicely to the different locations, like this dreamy music for the arrival at snowy Wonderland Romansburg.
What a strange town. What do you make of it, Oscar?
Or the tune that plays at the local pub, especially since this is Helena Romansky's song from the first game. Remember the voice that shatters glass? Well, without the vocals here. And her song playing here, at the outskirts of Russian civilization. It totally makes sense and it's absolutely fitting. In summary, the visuals are a nice step up, the sound and voice acting are both as good as ever, and the music is very fitting to each location. And with that, the presentation gets an 8.4 out of 10. On to the overall score. Syberia 2 concludes the story of Kate Walker's first journey. It is a beautiful story that focuses on the development of our protagonist. Due to the geographical direction of the story, the world is not as vibrant as before. This is something the devs tried to compensate by using more animations and effects. While the game controls exactly the same as its prequel, in terms of game mechanics, the second game has many more puzzles and could be considered much more of a game than the first one. And the visuals received a major upgrade with scrolling screens, more animations, reflections and more, while sticking to working sound effects and very fitting music. And with this, Syberia 2 deserves an overall score of 8.2 out of 10. And to summarize this sequel, Syberia 2 is the worthy conclusion of Kate's first journey. Period. On to final thoughts. While it is possible to play Syberia 2 without having played the first game, this is definitely not recommended. Yes, there are only slight references to characters and scenes from the previous game, but with this game directly connecting to the first one and concluding its story, I can only recommend playing the two back to back. All in all, I have to say that this one is shorter than the first one, but then again, it is one story. And while it feels complete and has a very satisfying end, it still leaves some loose ends for the story to continue. And here, there's again some nice bonus concept art that unlocks as you play through the story. This time, of course, art from the making of the second game. And that's it. Syberia 2. I hope you enjoyed this video and got a good impression about the game to know whether this one is for you or isn't. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe. Thanks for watching and see you on the next one.